Georgie adjusted his tie for the fourth time, glancing nervously at the mirror. He had always imagined getting married one day, but never twice to the same person. Well, technically, this was their first wedding, officially at least. "Relax," said his best friend, Carter, standing behind him. "You're acting like you haven't already been married to Mandy for 3 years." "That's because this time it's real," Georgie muttered, straightening his lapel. "This time our families are here. This time there's a minister. And this time there's an actual cake, not just a gas station cupcake with a candle in it." Carter chuckled. "Hey, that cupcake was iconic. But yeah, I get it. You two have come a long way." The first not-so-official wedding. 3 years ago, Georgie and Mandy had eloped in the most unconventional way possible, on a road trip, somewhere between a sleepy Nevada town and the outskirts of the Arizona desert. It wasn't a grand affair. No flowers, no guests, just the two of them. A fast-talking Elvis impersonator at a roadside chapel, and a bouquet of plastic daisies that Mandy had stolen from a gas station convenience store. It had been spontaneous, fueled by a deep, reckless love and a shared desire to escape the expectations of their strict families. They hadn't even told anyone, not their parents, not their friends. It had felt like a dream, a rebellious little secret stitched together with laughter and whispered promises. But reality had its way of catching up. They knew, deep down, that their families wouldn't approve. And as much as they had loved their secret marriage, they had always carried the weight of unfinished business. So when the time was right, they decided to do it properly. A real wedding, a celebration, not just for themselves, but for the people who mattered to them. A wedding with a different look. Mandy stood in front of the mirror, smoothing down the fabric of her dress. It wasn't the traditional white gown she had once imagined as a child. Instead, it was something entirely different, soft lavender with delicate embroidery along the edges. A dress that shimmered in the light like something out of a fairy tale. It felt right, like a blend of old traditions and new beginnings. Her mother entered the room, pausing at the doorway. "You look beautiful," she said softly. Mandy turned to her, gauging her expression. Their relationship had been rocky since the truth about the elopement had come out. But now, as her mother stepped closer, reaching out to adjust a strand of Mandy's hair, there was something different in her eyes. Not disappointment, not judgment, but acceptance. "I'm glad we're doing this," Mandy said. "For everyone." Her mother nodded. "For everyone," she echoed. A ceremony under the open sky. The venue was nothing like a traditional chapel or a grand ballroom. Instead, Georgie and Mandy had chosen something that felt more like them. An open field surrounded by towering oak trees, with fairy lights strung between the branches. The guests sat on rustic wooden benches, and at the front, a simple wooden arch stood adorned with wildflowers. As Mandy walked down the aisle, Georgie felt his breath catch. This was the moment he had waited for, the moment where they got to do things right, but in their own way. The ceremony was filled with little nods to their unconventional love story. The officiant made a light-hearted joke about their Elvis-themed elopement, bringing laughter from the guests. Instead of a unity candle, they planted a small tree together, symbolizing growth and resilience. And when it came time to exchange vows, Mandy pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from her pocket. "I wrote these 3 years ago," she admitted, grinning. "But I think they still hold up." She cleared her throat and began. "Georgie, when we first got married, we were running, not from each other, but from everything else. We were young, we were scared, but most of all, we were in love. We didn't need a big wedding back then because we knew, without a doubt, that we were meant to be. But today, standing here in front of everyone, I realize that love isn't just about knowing. It's about choosing. Every single day, I choose you. today, tomorrow, and forever. Georgie blinked rapidly, trying to keep his emotions in check. He took a deep breath before speaking. Mandy, when we got married the first time, it felt like an adventure. And it still is. But what I've learned is that love isn't just about the big moments. It's about the small ones. It's about coffee in the morning and dancing in the kitchen and laughing until we can't breathe. It's about choosing each other even when things get hard. And no matter how many times we get married, I'll always choose you. There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. A reception to remember. The reception was just as unconventional as the wedding itself. Instead of a formal sit-down dinner, they had a picnic-style feast with food trucks and